Yo, what's up, Sam? Well,
what's happening?
How you doing, boss man?
Good.
Yeah, I would say the way you responded to that is exactly how I feel. It's like good, but shit's still hitting the fan. Shout out to the protesters though. But excited to get into this episode, man. We got Dave Melhado, head of artist marketing at UnitedMasters. We've been trying to set this up for months, and it took a pandemic to finally get everything together, but I'm glad we did. For those who don't know, UnitedMasters is a distribution service, but they offer so much more. They offer brand access. They give you the tools like making a smart URL, which puts together links for your recent releases. They do that automatically when you come out with a song and provide that to you. They give you information on your fans so you can better connect with them. Essentially, and he'll explain this too, is they're trying to operationalize independence. So in this episode, we not only get to how UnitedMasters can help independent artists sustain their careers, but also how independent artists can do that on their own. So I'm really excited to get into it. And what'd you think, Sam?
Yeah, I thought it was incredible. It was good to be able to speak to some of the higher level trends when it comes to how artists are more and more able to create their own leverage as independent artists, and whether or not they want to stay independent or just use that leverage to get more favorable deals with record labels, I think is really powerful. So diving into some different tactics there is super helpful. I think Dave also has experience working very closely and directly with some artists that have done incredible things, both through his work with UnitedMasters as well as his work beyond Roc Nation, Stream Cuts. He's worked with and really helped aid in the development and promotion of NLE Choppa, Gunna, young bands. These are all artists, incredible artists doing incredible things. So I think Dave has tons of very unique and valuable perspectives. So really excited to dive in. If you haven't already, I definitely encourage you guys to just check out UnitedMasters. I think it's a powerful tool if you're an independent artist looking to grow, build that leverage. That's the new 2020 theme of music business podcast listeners. Leverage.
Build that leverage.
There it is. All right. Well,
Awesome.
Without any further ado, let's get into the episode.
Yo, Dave, what's up, man? Thanks for coming out virtually.
Jordan, what's going on, man? Thank you for having me on the show. It's been a little long time coming. We've been trying to coordinate this for a while.
I know somebody asked me earlier today, who reached out to who first, and I literally forgot. I was like, I know we've been texting for months, but I forgot how I came across Dave. But glad you're finally on.
Thank you.
I guess just for starters, elevator pitch, what type of stuff have you done in the music industry, and when did you join it?
Man, I guess I started in college like most people in the industry. Did an internship with Jermaine Dupri's dad at Malden Brand Agency. So essentially I was working on the Scream tour during the prime, when Bow Wow, Marianne were really thriving, teeny bop, kind of all the girls were going crazy over them. So that's where I got my start. Worked a little bit in radio, was college rep for Atlantic Records. But then after I graduated school in Tampa, I moved to Atlanta, where I just hit the ground running. I was working with an artist named Verse Simmons. He's a Grammy-nominated songwriter eventually. So worked with him for 6 years, around the time when he had records for Chris Brown on the X album. Also had cuts on Jay-Z and Kanye's Watch the Throne. He did the Who Gonna Stop Me cut. And after we stopped working together, I was really seeing the shift in the music business. So that's when I kind of started diving into streaming analytics, insights on dashboards. I was getting hooked up into Next Big Sound, and I just really dove into the digital marketing space, the streaming space, just kind of I felt like I was going to school again because I was re-educating myself on how the business was changing. So around that time, I ran into this attorney who was getting ready to start this company called Stream Cut in Atlanta. And I made a deal with him where it was basically he gave me office space to do consulting as long as I had conversations with his artists. So he would pull me in and talk to the artists about marketing strategy and rollout. And then eventually started working with him more of a full-time capacity The first artist I signed to the company was Gunna. Worked closely with young bands, briefly with young Nudy, but like artists now like that are really starting to thrive out of the Atlanta scene, like Melhado, uh, Young Baby Tate, Anne Marie were all artists that I was collaborating on and putting input in. And then just from success from the Gunna like movement, I was starting to have a lot of conversations with people outside of the company. And one of those conversations was with Roc Nation. So I went to Roc Nation, moved to New York, was there for some time. And then where I'm at now, it led me to an opportunity to lead the marketing efforts at UnitedMasters.
That's amazing,
awesome.
Man.
Yeah.
Huge congratulations.
Thank
Sounds
you.
Sounds like a fun roller coaster ride.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Anne Marie and Gunna, different parts of the industry for sure, but both very, very talented artists.
Yeah.
So I guess in like your own words, what is the vision for and the mission of UnitedMasters for those who don't know?
Well, UnitedMasters is operationalizing independence. So when you think about for so long, artists had to go through a major label to be able to put their music or put their art out to the world. Things have changed, obviously, as we talked about. Everything from digital to streaming. All these things became lowered the barriers of entry for artists and being able to distribute your music, maintain your masters, so that way you maintain that ownership. Are some of the things that we preach upon. So. The company was started 3 years ago by obviously Steve Stout, CEO. And with the idea of like, we want to be able to make everything, make it easier for artists to be able to put their music out. So last year, July 4th, we launched a mobile app. So essentially it's a record company in your pocket. So everything from delivering your music, uploading your artwork, then when you deliver your songs to all the DSPs through the app, you then see your streaming data. You then see your financials. And that was a big deal because like historically in the music business, there was really no transparency on like how well is your projects performing or how much money are you actually generating. So we wanted to bring transparency. And the biggest thing that I would say the differentiator between ourselves and another distribution company is the brand exclusives. So, we have partnerships with the NBA. Last year, we also did a partnership with NBA 2K and a number of other companies where you shouldn't have to be an artist signed to a major label to be able to have your song synced in a commercial or synced in a video game or to have your song in a movie, right? And you shouldn't have to be signed to a major label to be able to have some brand money to help you pay for some of your rollout or some of your content. So everything from Bose, Bose came in and we did a partnership with them where they did some video content for a number of our artists. Same thing with Ralph Lauren, sponsored an artist's tour. So in exchange for some content created. So, we want to be able to add value to artists in ways that are outside the box. And for independent artists who have a voice, a lot of these bigger brands want to work with, be a part of the story from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. That's super cool. So when it comes to you, and I mean, I think it's smart too, from not only for emerging artists that are looking for a valuable resource to go about marketing their own music, but just from like the team, you guys, Steve Stout, I mean, just the macro trend of like, way more independent artists are emerging. How can we create an organization that gives them tools, but then ultimately becomes this kind of like what a modern day record label is like? But so, I mean, can you dive into that when it comes to the notion of like some of the specifics as far as how you differentiate yourself from you're providing these opportunities for musicians, but they still are able to retain their ownership on their actual music, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just like a distribution deal. The only difference is we do 90-10 and we never own your masters. So you retain ownership of your masters, and that's important because that's part of what you're like as you're trying to build your legacy and want to be able to leave something alone for your kids and their kids. Like you want to be able to maintain these masters. So many people know, when you go sign a label deal, it's changing a little bit now. If you go sign to a major, the percentage is upside down, right? Like you can never recoup because you're at either 18 to 22% royalty. And, it's impossible for you to be able to thrive in a situation like that after, the momentum and the hype of whether it's your single or your album and time passed. That's why you see so many artists are complaining that they want to get out of their deal, right? They don't have control of when they can release their projects. When you're independent, especially in a time like a pandemic that we're in, you want to be able to release music whenever you want to, right? How can you thrive in a time like this? Because you're competing against some other priority artists and you can't release music when you want to, right? So like the freedom to be able to release music at any given time, to be able to align with anytime you get a sync opportunity, you're able to ascertain or decide if you want to be able to approve that going in. Like, you don't want to give up those rights. And like, the record labels are going to make money off of your project forever, and ever, right? And you want to be able to maintain that ownership. And nowadays the labels are coming in and throwing big bags of money at you, like Arizona Zervos, like multi-million-dollar deal, right?
Yeah.
For many artists, that's not a reality that you'll ever have that moment.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's incredible, man.
Yeah, you can
it's
be
super exciting.
You can be independent, and you can still be relatively successful and have a consistent check coming in your account every month.
Yeah, no, that's powerful, and excited to see that general trend take place in the music industry. I mean, I think we've spoken about this, and I know it's like an argument a lot of people love to have around like the merit of signing with a major record label. So let's have it. So I think a lot of people, I mean, our perspective or my personal perspective, I mean, it's like there's three things that are valuable from a record label when you sign with a major record label or like a subsidiary imprint within one: funding, playlist placement, and A&Rs. So A&R mainly from the perspective of being able to make connections to help enhance the quality of an artist's music, right? Once they've actually been signed. From your perspective, like do you feel like you work at UnitedMasters now? You have experience working with tons of artists that have been signed and have deals with major labels. Like, where do you see, when does it make sense to sign with a major label? When does it not? Is it necessary in today's day and age?
I mean, I'll never tell an artist like, yo, do not sign to a major label, because obviously every artist does what's best for them in their situation, right? But if you are going to sign to a major label, you want to be able to build leverage, right? So being able to build traction on your own, be self-sustained, and go into the studio and record. Most of these artists that are making music, they're not getting their songs mixed and mastered. Like, the fans don't even know the difference sometimes, right? So sitting in the studio for 12 months to record an album doesn't hold the same value as what it did back in the day, right? Most of these artists are able to collaborate digital, right? They can record their tracks and then send it for a feature, or send it back to the producer and never meet the producer. We have tons of stories like that in our platform, where artists are coming into our platform. They have never met the producer. They've never been in the room with the mix engineer, and they're putting this music out and they're becoming the top trending song on TikTok. Right. And they're building momentum.
That's how Town Road came together, right?
Yeah. And these artists are building momentum.
Because they're producers.
Exactly. So they're building the momentum on their own, and building traction. So like, really at that point, what is the label doing for you? Right. So there's value that a major label can do from a funding standpoint. Right. But if you're building up enough traction, the deals that it becomes like multiples, right? Because the deals that they'll offer you, you'd make some of that money back in a matter of maybe 4 months if you're really thriving. If you got a couple projects in the system, like Russ posted a picture maybe 3 weeks ago on social, where he was like, yo, independent is the way. And he showed from 2 songs alone that they was both over 7 figures in royalties off of 2 songs. And I think he said he had over 300 songs in his catalog.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I love it. And I think we'll see more and more artists realize that they can build that leverage on their own. When it comes to when it comes to the specific, and I'm excited to dive into how you kind of support artist marketing within UnitedMasters, because I think there still is like value and merit to external support when it comes to marketing artists. Mm-hmm. But while we're on the topic, I mean, other alternatives to UnitedMasters, like I think you guys do a great job when it comes to a lot of you speak to being able to own data and have better understanding as to who your customers and listeners actually are. When you do start to look at other distributors, DistroKid, CD Baby, these other kind of like DIY tools in which independent artists can go about distributing their music, like what's the value of using something like UnitedMasters instead?
I mean, like honestly, it's a big piece of that is the brand exclusives, right? We have tons of stories where artists are getting their songs on NBA commercials, NBA social clips, being included in NBA 2K, the soundtrack. So as other distribution companies are just stopping at sending your music to Spotify, like we're sending your music to NBA 2K. We have a couple partnerships that are coming down the line that will soon to be announced that are going to be able to change the way that artists think about, like, yo, what do I really need from another? Like, yeah, I can upload on my own, but I do want to have some of those kind of label services that a UnitedMasters can provide for me.
Mm-hmm. Do you know some of the people that were on that 2K soundtrack? Because it was one of my friends from college, actually. Me and him haven't talked in a while, and he was on the soundtrack, and I was like, how did he get on the soundtrack? Because it's not like he's super famous or anything. So I was wondering, like, you know, what are some of the names? I guess just so his name is Dane Carter. But I was like, is he when you as you were talking, I was like, is he on UnitedMasters? Maybe not. But even then, that's super awesome that you guys can do that for smaller artists.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
In terms of just like your history, well, how many artists is roughly on the UnitedMasters platform right now? Also,
oh man, we have over 6 figures. I don't think we've like publicly how many, but it's a lot of artists, you know. And
right,
I think,
awesome.
It's growing rapidly on a monthly basis. It's not like a slow crawl. Like we're rapidly racing towards a large amount of artists on our platform.
Awesome. So I have 2 questions. I guess I'll ask them in succession because they're both kind of big questions. One is, generally, as your role at of head of artist marketing, how do you think that differs at kind of like this tech music industry hybrid, like UnitedMasters versus another more traditional record label? Like what I think of in particular is you guys also, in addition to you doing regular or more predictable marketing tasks for these artists, you guys also allow artists to have tools where they can market themselves in the app. So like how much of your pool is, you know, kind of being a product manager and being like, hey, this is how I would market artists. Maybe the artist should have access to this in the app, that sort of thing. So I guess, you know, how do they compare, and you know, your role, how does it change when it's at a company like UnitedMasters versus a traditional record label?
Yeah, so like when you're at a traditional record label, you have a lot more control over timeline, budget, where you're gonna allocate money. And obviously when you're independent, the artist has more say, right? So a lot of times we work closely with the artists that we consider as like the priority artists in our platform, and we'll help them build out their marketing strategy, help them build out their digital strategy, and then we'll have conversations. It's 2-way where we're like, yo, these are the things that we're suggesting, and this is the way that we can make it happen. So major label system, product manager is driving the car. It's like you have your artist is your franchise, your own franchise of a company, and you're managing all the day-to-day elements of it. So whether you're dealing with PR, or whether you're going to the radio department, whether you're going to digital, you're driving that vehicle to make sure that everyone is inside the building is excited. At UnitedMasters, because we're such of a hybrid type company, we have all these different elements within the company, from creative to video production. We have graphic design. So some of the same things that a major label would have, that you got to fight for to be able to get good resources. Because we're such a small team, we're able to be able to get more done in that fashion. So working hand to hand, just advising the artists on strategy. To your point about the tools that we have in platform, like we built our own master link which is a competitor to Smart URL or Linkfire. And like as soon as you deliver your music and it's approved in our platform, we automatically generate a pre-save for you. So we don't just stop at the pre-save. We also have a widget on the master link that allows you to collect fan data. So you're able to collect phone numbers, emails from your fans, and then be able to send text messages or be able to export that list and send emails. So it's all about building that data so that way you can own your audience without having to deal with another platform.
Mm-hmm. And that was actually going to lead me kind of to my next question: is when you have that many artists on a platform, how do you make sure that they're all being serviced in the right way? And from what it sounds like you're also, not just helping the priority artists, but you're putting together tools and resources that as soon as you sign onto the platform, you have access to that can kind of simulate what what many record labels would give you access to. We had somebody at EQT when I was at EQT that part of their job was just to make smart URLs. It was like when the record came out, it was like, you knew who to hit to get that smart URL. So that's super dope that you guys kind of do that automatically.
Yeah, no, for sure. We did this activation with Snapchat. So like there was a couple artists in our platform that like random artists that we just was like, yo, this is a dope record. We submitted to Snapchat and they use it in one of their global lenses. So like that's huge. No matter in a day's time, you're getting so many impressions to your master link and to your song that you can build momentum, right? Then when there's other opportunities, we read the data. Like our research team they're some of the best in the business because they're like crunching numbers. They're watching stream counts. They're watching how fast your social is growing. And the artists we start to see build some traction, we just start opening up more opportunities for them. Like, hey, this brand is looking for this song for a commercial. All right, cool. This song is performing really well this week. One record that's doing really well is I think number 3 song on TikTok this week, or number 3 song on global and US Viral 50 is BMW Kenny, Wipe It Down. Like, so a couple weeks ago it was like the number 1 trend on TikTok. And this is a kid who uploaded a song and the next week it goes viral on TikTok. And now he has every major label knocking on his door. And he's building leverage.
Yeah, no, it's powerful, man. It's super amazing. In your experience, you're working with a lot of artists. You just kind of referenced a couple specific examples. And even within UnitedMasters and even prior and other elements of your career, like, what do you think constitutes a great rollout? I think there's tons of different factors at play. So when you're really trying to kind of laser in and think about a robust rollout strategy, where are you putting your focus and making sure crossing those T's and dotting those I's?
Yeah, it's different for every artist because every artist has something different that is like that you're going to lean onto. But typically, like when I'm sitting with an artist and I'm really invested in their project, I really try to like lock in on the narrative first. Because if I understand like who that artist is and that artist understands who they are and what that project means, then you can start telling different stories, right? You can tell stories through content. You can tell the stories as you start to align other things in the rollout. Like it makes sense to align with this fashion brand because this artist is aligned in that space, or it aligns like with the artist's mission. So like I'll always start with the narrative and then build out like, okay, well, what's the messaging strategy, right? How am I going to message this out to his fans in the marketing, right? And then what are the tactics going to be? So like, what am I going to do? Like the drivers like that are going to drive the narrative and the messaging strategy out to the world. So it's, I usually just start with the narrative, but there's always different layers. And like for different artists, there's different things that start to show its head first. And then you just kind of like lean into those things.
Yeah. Can you reference any specific examples?
Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah.
I feel like storytelling it's a powerful concept and narrative, but in practice, it can stump people sometimes.
Yeah, I was actually off the back of that. I worked with a client a couple years ago who, we did the same thing that you did. It was like, what's the narrative? What's the message that you're trying to portray? And the narrative just wasn't that exciting. So like, once you get deeper into that narrative, what are some of the things that you also look for that you think people will align to? And then to get back to Sam's point, when have you kind of seen all of that, the narrative, the message, all of that come together in the artists that you work with?
Yeah, for sure. Like, so one of the narratives that was like really clear was NLE Choppa. And obviously a lot of people know that he had like really quick success off of Shotta Flow and Shotta Flow Remix. And then eventually went and did a partnership with Warner Music, Warner Records. And this past December, we rolled out the last project that we had with him. But he's already had success, right? So we released this project called Cottonwood that he was really passionate about, like, yo, I want to tell the story about where I'm from, right? So with Cottonwood being Cottonwood Road that he grew up on, so we had to tell the story like, yo, this is the story of a kid who went from a school bus to tour buses. Like, he's a kid who had success seemingly overnight. And this is what happens when the whole world is basically in your shit when you're only 16 years old, right? So people start to criticize you. People are in business, and you still are just a kid. Like, you just want to live your life. So through Cottonwood, like, we started to align with some of the things that were passionate to him that other kids can relate to. Choppa is a hooper, right? So we aligned Cottonwood with a mobile basketball game. So like we developed this thing called Top Shotta basketball game, where essentially it was just basically a game that was streaming his music, and it was just like a hot shot basketball game, right? And those were just things that we just wanted to make sure that people knew, like, yo, everything aligned with who he was as a person and where he was in his life. And we just kind of like started, like, marketing is supposed to not feel like marketing, right? And that's why I always feel like good marketing doesn't feel like marketing at all. So we was always trying to find creative ways to be able to make that and bring that to life.
Cool. That's awesome. You actually already answered the question, but just to shout out Ethan on our Patreon, he asked what are a few things that you guys did well to amplify and fan the flames of NLE Choppa. I think you pretty much just answered that. So thank you for that. So, an artist that you just helped recently, Storm, my friend Kyle helped out. So obviously you're in marketing. It's not like you're specifically in the A&R department, but one thing that you told me is that, you just liked their music, so you wanted to see how you could help. How do you come across artists like that? And then what activations do you think make the most sense for them, whether they're at the stage that Storm is at, or if they're bigger artists? Like, how do you kind of decide what the next step is, and how do you find those artists in the first place?
Yeah, so like in Storm's case, we went live on IG. Like, so every Tuesday we go live and do this IG open mic. And she jumped on, and like I was hosting a couple of them, and one of our A&Rs, Andre, who does a really good job at hosting, like he jumped on and hosted it that night. And as soon as I heard her voice, she was playing the guitar, I was like, yo, this is something special. But I saw something special because I also knew that we had just launched this like IG live series with Victor Oladipo and the NBA on the NBA socials. And we had artists that were going on and performing on, like, so we had this show with T-Pain and Anthony Hamilton co-hosted. And I was like, yo, Storm would be, an incredible story would be this girl, she came onto our IG live, during the pandemic of all times, and has incredible talent. And we put her on the NBA social channel. Like, so immediately her social following grew. Immediately her monthly listeners grew. So it shows like the power of like our brand exclusives. Had we had not had that partnership with the NBA and developed this NBA and Apple Music baseline playlist for independent artists, we wouldn't have the opportunity to be able to put her on what I would call the main stage on the NBA's channel. So it's a lot of times it's taste, right? So you hear something that you like, you either bring in an artist to the platform to utilize, and then you just work and find ways that you can plug them into the opportunities.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. I think it makes a lot of sense too. Really just trying to make sure you're tying the brands back to stuff that's in line with their narrative and making sure it's this very like mutually beneficial, authentic thing. It's super cool. When it comes to like the Do you ever feel like UnitedMasters is just becoming like another record label?
Nah, I don't think so because I know where we're trying to do and try to build and where we're going. Like when we talk about operationalizing independence, like that's really what we're doing. Like so we're creating all the tools that you possibly would need as an artist. So that way you don't feel like the stress of like, yo, I can't make it or I can't be successful unless I go to a major label. And that's one of the most exciting parts of my job because I get to collaborate with our team in San Fran who's building our product. I get to collaborate with our ad agency, a translation team on projects. So, and in addition to our team in New York, so like it's a really fulfilling job because it doesn't feel like work. It's like, yo, when you come up and trying to be in the music business, you know, you actually see firsthand like the work that you're putting in. Artists are benefiting, and you're able to change their lives. You know, so I'm seeing kids who literally are 17 years old, 18 years old, and just upload their first song, like Lil Zell. Just, I think he's 17 or just turned 18. He just put out his first song, and he number one song on TikTok, number one song on viral charts for multiple weeks, and every label was knocking on his door to give him money. You know, so you know, what we're doing at UnitedMasters is actually changing lives. We're creating tools for artists to be able to be educated. As you see from the social, like we make sure that we're being transparent about the industry, but then also like giving free game, right? We just launched this tool called Lab, which basically is a series of different webinars and different resources for artists to be able to use. So whether we're having interviews with managers, we're having content pieces that we'll share inside of our platform. So if you're a UnitedMasters artist, like there's so many things that's coming down the line that you can benefit from. It behooves you to be independent.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's fascinating to see too the shift. I know it's the barriers of entry, like you referenced, have definitely gone down a lot, and there's been a major kind of like surge as far as like how much people are distributing their own music. I think it's still like the tip of the iceberg though when it comes to like how much power major record labels, like if you really look at like the top 100, how dominant their like stronghold still really is at that tier. But I think that is not to discourage independent artists. I think that's literally going to change drastically over the next 5 to 10 years, because I think what's also, I mean, it's like not only is the mechanism of like literally distributing music been kind of democratized, but also just the mechanism and means of actually accessing fans through social media and being able to build an audience through content. So that to me gets exciting. I mean, you guys both, and I mean, Jordan, you as well too. I mean, you feel like we'll, over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, like we'll just continue to see this shift, if not even faster and more so than it is now?
So for artists, me at least, is on the Billboard Hot 100 and the top, and they're signed to a major label. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were always signed to a major label. So it doesn't really tell like all the story. Like the artist could be an artist that started off on UnitedMasters, got really big on UnitedMasters, cashed out on a major label, and now that's, you know, now they're in the 10. You know what I mean? I do think that artists need to sign. I do think artists won't need to sign as early. And the distance, I think the distance between how early artists sign to their major label is going to expand. So like if I make a song, or I'm an artist, an independent artist, and I might not sign to a label a year into my career. I might sign to a label 4 or 5 years into my career. It might just be later, you know. So to answer your question, I think it depends on how major labels respond to independent artists getting big, and then are they giving them what they want when they want to use that as leverage? You know what I mean? Because if not, they'll stay independent and then they'll end up in the top 10.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. Like I think that a lot of artists have built leverage independently. Like 21 Savage is a perfect example. He built leverage and then went into a deal where he was able to maintain ownership of his masters. You know what I mean? Like that's what this whole thing is about. Is forcing the labels to have to change the way that they handle their business, and by educating and equipping the artists with the tools, like let's be honest, like TikTok is part of every major label's like strategy. They're trying to throw legacy artists on TikTok and run campaigns for legacy artists because they can't figure out how to market them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so what, like when you start thinking about it, it's like, yo, what exactly is the label doing for you? Unless you just have a really dope product manager that's really passionate about you. But there's a lot of artists that sign to a major label that might have signed to prematurely that are really talented and have a lot of stuff that they can put out to the world, but nobody can hear their voice because they can't put out the music or they're not a priority. And that's the part that's disappointing.
For sure. I mean, and from your perspective too, I mean, as somebody that's worked with a lot of artists at a lot of different stages, I mean, when it comes to building that leverage, what are other tactical areas of focus? I know we dove deep into the kind of the rollout phase of like this general like artist marketing life cycle, but there's a lot of other like areas of focus and times when artists should be marketing when it's not like rollout time. So when you're thinking about helping, if you had to speak with an artist, I know it's hard to, you can't generalize, but like, what are some of the specific recommendations you'd make for artists that are early on in their career that are looking to build up that leverage?
Yeah, I mean, the big piece of it is like building that fan base that's off platforms. You know what I mean? Like your ability to be able to communicate with your fans allows you to take them anywhere. So if you're on Twitch, if you're a gamer, you can, if you have a relationship and you have a database of your fans, then you can start bringing your fans to Twitch so that they're engaging with you in a different way, right? If you're into fashion, you can start launching a fashion brand or a merch line, but you own your audience. So now you're pushing your fans to something totally different that is not just about the music. And now that means they're buying into your personal brand. And when we're talking about leverage, that's leverage right there. Because a lot of times these artists go and do the deals because the label throws them a $4 million deal or $8 million deal, and they jump on that money because they have lack of resources. But if you're able to own that audience and build it slow over time and gradually over time, and you start interacting with your fans in different ways and finding ways that you can monetize off of your fans, you're no longer like you've built leverage now, so you don't have to jump on that deal as soon as they throw the first offer at you. You can leverage to get a licensing deal, so that way they're licensing the music from you, right? You maintain the ownership, and that's what's going to be able to make a lot more artists in the future a lot more successful for a longer period of time. You know, there's artists that signed to a major label that's going to companies to Wall Street to sell off their royalties, and this is like facts. So, you know, like we want to be able to equip our artists and help our artists like the education about the business and be financially savvy so that way they know like, yo, that $1 million is not really $1 million that they just offered you. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. I think one of the big people in my life where I was a fan when they started making music, it didn't matter what it sounded like, was Cardi B. Because I've been a Cardi B fan from seeing her on reality television, seeing her on Twitter, seeing her on Instagram for so long. Like by the time the album came out, I was going to listen to it anyway. And that's because she got me as a person convinced in her personal brand. You know what I mean? It was much bigger than the music. So
yeah. I mean, even like Tory Lanez, like perfect example. Like, yeah, he had a project coming out, but like, I think the quarantine has this. I feel like I know Tory Lanez, like what he stands for now, right? And his personality, because from Quarantine Radio, for him to speak out on Instagram, for him to do a live show, like he started to build these different things about who he is as an artist and what he stands for. So now fans are buying into it. You know, like his Instagram following grew rapidly over the quarantine. And that's a ton of artists that the quarantine, you can't tour. It's forced you to be able to reach your fans in a different, unique way. It humanizes you to the extent where now people start seeing like, yo, maybe I can tap into Cardi B's or any other artist's makeup tutorial, or maybe I'm tuning into her point of view. So now you're developing your influence that eventually you can use in other areas.
Right. And to speak on, learning things from Cardi B, I had a consultancy call last week, and I was kind of talking about this, like how important your personal brand is and how you got to kind of attack it from every angle so people invest in it. And I was just kind of like, and I'll say this on here too so people can hear it. Everybody who is getting people to to buy into their personal brand is kind of laying out the keys for you, right? Like you can look at somebody's Instagram feed and see the posts that they did in the last week. You can see the engagement on their posts. You can look at their Twitter and see the engagement on their Twitter. Obviously, we don't really have access to like their emailing list or their text list or anything like that, but you can look and see how your most favorite artists are portraying themselves, so people do buy into that brand, and then pick and choose from the people that you like, and then develop a plan of your own. It'll eventually morph into your own thing. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Before we wrap, I kind of just want to ask you about innovation during the pandemic, and some of the things that you've done in response to it to kind of change how UnitedMasters helps market their artists. And also, what do you think independent artists can do that maybe don't have UnitedMasters help or tools yet to kind of navigate this weird realm that we're in now?
Yeah, so like I think the pandemic caused us to realize like, we need to be as connected as we are with our artists. We have to be even more connected and create opportunities for them to connect with other artists. So this week we launched a Discord channel, so that way artists can off platform be able to communicate. We're able to put content, vital links during a crazy time like this week, which was like protests all across the country. Like we got people in our platform that's on the front lines, right? But there's multiple artists on the front lines and they don't even know each other. So we created this Discord channel so that they can connect with each other and stay connected. And I think that's what it's about. It's like finding more creative ways that we can connect people and share information ultimately. And I think to answer your question about innovative, and like you always have to be thinking about like what the next thing is, right? And then you have to take a few bets on trying it out and trying to build momentum. Because like, a couple years ago, people weren't on TikTok, and it took time for, those kids to build their following up, and they was able to control attention. And that's ultimately what it's about. If you have the ability to be able to control attention, then, you can control where you're directing people.
Mm-hmm. Right. Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for virtually coming out and being on the Music Business Podcast. I'm glad it finally came together. Like you said in the beginning, we've been trying to organize this for a while, but I was really excited to get you on for good reason. I think UnitedMasters is a unique in a good way, a model for artists and for independent artists. I haven't quite seen a platform like it. And Sam and I, before the episode, were even saying that you guys kind of move like a startup, even though you guys have a lot of funding and the company is big, because that's just kind of how it feels, And I think that is it. I think that's admirable to especially independent artists who don't want to feel like they're joining something huge, some conglomerate, right? So like you guys obviously have a huge user base, but you're making the experience individualized, which I appreciate.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, we very much are a startup, and all our artists are startups as well. So it's like we're helping our artists realize that we can build a business and build some leverage and be able to realize everything I wanted to get out of my career.
That's sick, man. Awesome. A beautiful mission. We're so excited to see it continue to actualize too, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been a true pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Woo! yeah, I was lit. It was a great episode, man. David's a smart guy. Really grateful to learn about his experience. Loved his tactical advice when it comes to planning rollouts and really starting at the foundation as far as what's the actual kind of narrative of the artist, of the release, and being able to use that to inspire and inform what are the different stories you want to tell and different sorts of content and activations you really want to lean into. I think that was super valuable. I also think UnitedMasters is just a powerful company and software tool with an incredible mission. And I really am excited to see how the music industry continues to evolve when it comes to the power collectively that independent artists have. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I thought it was dope, man. And I think that United is doing a lot of things and this is why they're ahead of the game in a lot of respects, is they're doing a lot of things that already make sense. Nobody's just doing, you know what I mean? And that's almost kind of like what I think a good business idea is too. Something where you're like, oh, dang, nobody made that yet? It's like they're kind of doing that with independent artist careers. It's like, wow, nobody has offered these services to independent artists yet. Nobody has kind of given artists the tools themselves to succeed on their own. And I think UnitedMasters is doing that in a big way.
Yeah, no, super fire. All right, well, as always, we appreciate y'all greatly. If you haven't already, please don't hesitate to go ahead and leave us a review. It'll help us get the podcast. It'll help us understand what y'all love, maybe what y'all don't love. All feedback is good feedback in our book, but maybe just shoot that one in the DMs, not the public Apple podcast feedback. But we love y'all and we support y'all. So enjoy the rest of your week, nights. Get that leverage, 2020. We'll talk soon.
That leverage.
Peace.